Dow closes 422 points lower after a surprisingly bad inflation report. You know, I love that because I'm not surprised at all. I don't know if you were paying attention to all of the videos on TikTok from middle-aged men who are and Gen Zers who are all simultaneously saying, I can't afford to eat, then it sounds like you don't need the report to tell you the economy's bad. So the general news is that the blue chip Dow closed 1.1% lower after U.S. consumer prices picked up again last month, vaulting to a 3.5% increase for the 12 months ending in March, according to the latest consumer price index data released Wednesday by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Now, I'm going to stop here because I don't need to read the news to tell good old American citizens who deal with this every single day. Like, you don't need an expert to be like, did you know your prices have gone up? You're like, yeah, I was at the grocery store the other day. I couldn't afford anything. So I'll just throw it to our good friend, Donald Trump, who posted this. Since Biden took office, airfare is up 33%. Then we have more. Since Biden took office, gasoline up 48%. We got more? Yep. Since Biden took office, groceries are up 21%. And then we have this. Since Biden took office, rent is up 21%. Take a look at this tweet. Trump posted this on Truth Social. Inflation at the same point in Trump presidency. Under Biden, energy is up 38.8. Gasoline is up 47.8. Electricity is 29%. Natural gas is 26%. Groceries 21%. Eggs are up 49.3. Fine, I won't exaggerate. Milk's 15. Chicken's 23. Yo, this is crazy. Airfare's up 32. Public transit's 22%. Used cars 20%. Apparel is 13.5%. Well, that's Bidenomics.
Hey, first thing I think is like, that's just a picture. Is it? I mean, and not that you have the answer, but is this like true? Is this documented somewhere? Where did the data come from?
Fair point.
And the second thing is, and a little bit of a side comment is, I don't really personally blame either of these guys for the economy right now. I feel like this has been a spiraling ball of goo, and it's just been getting stickier and stickier. And it's like inevitably, they've been telling me, every trillion you add on is going to make it a little bit harder to go backwards.
Take a look at this response someone posted, calling. They said, now do corporate price gouging. It is absolutely insane that people are falling for that Biden narrative where he's like, it's because the corporations are charging more for their products. Come on, man.
It's someone else's fault. It's not mine.
I love how the media is always surprised by this thing. Like every time the jobs report comes out every month, the media always says surprisingly low or surprisingly high. These guys are economists. They are constantly taken by surprise by what they're supposed to be experts at. It happens all the time.
Yeah, everybody knows economists are basically astrologists.
Right.
They just sit down, look at charts, and then they put on their wizard caps and they go, woo, and then it's completely shocking to them when the report comes out.
I like when the Biden admin is like, actually things are good, and the American consumers are like, is it because we're suffering?
So
they're like, no, it's fine, you're wrong.
It's let them eat cake.
Yeah, seriously.
The Biden thing that what they have to rely on is they have to try to convince people that what the people are living through and experiencing and seeing in their own daily lives is not actually happening. In fact, the opposite is true. What you experience every day in your own life, that's not really happening. And they've been trying to convince people for like the last 2 months that no, in fact, the economy is awesome. You have Paul Krugman in the New York Times talking about how the war against inflation is over. He declared victory. It's over, and at very little cost. And then, of course, this happens. Inflation is higher.
I do not feel like the Biden administration has conquered inflation.
No, they have
really
obviously have not.
War.
And so, in the media, they're always like that. John Harwood, who's a retired NBC, CNN guy, not retired, fired is more accurate. He sits around and says, the Biden's just not getting credit for how excellent the economy is, and the economy is actually awesome. It's just Americans don't know it. And then this news comes out, and they are forced to report that inflation is still out of control, and then they have to say, well, this was actually surprising.
Do you think that it's surprising people because they're subsidizing gasoline and keeping prices of gasoline down?
Well, you mean the gasoline would be even higher than it already
it'd be like
is?
8, 9, 13. Yeah, it'd be like $12 a gallon.
The gas should be way higher. Joe Biden drained the Strategic Petroleum Reserve so that he could artificially lower the price by dumping supply. And then when he was supposed to restock our emergency supply, which is for war and other emergencies, he went, nah. Because it would have driven prices up and would have been substantially worse than it is now.
Yeah. I mean, remember day one of the Biden administration, he signed all these executive orders and he did all these things. And a giant percentage of every president does a lot of stuff on the first day, but a huge percentage of what Biden did on the first day was to attack fossil fuels, which, like it or not, that's what this economy is based on. I mean, we were just talking about this before we went on the air. Until there is a viable alternative that is widely available to, 300 million consumers, fossil fuels is what we've got. He declared war on it right away. And what do you think is going to happen?
And then they play this game. Like you saw the response to this tweet where they're like, it's corporate price gouging because billionaires want Trump to win. Oh, yeah, because 6 billionaires, because you got 1 billionaire like, I own all these companies. Raise the prices. Like, okay.
And no billionaires donate to Biden's campaign.
Right. And that's not happening. And then what happens when Biden gets in and Keystone, for example, he shuts down the Keystone pipeline.
Day one.
And then what you immediately get is the media going, did shutting down the Keystone pipeline increase the cost of gas? False, because the Keystone wasn't actually transporting gasoline. And that's the lie. That's how they manipulate people, because they know the average person doesn't understand the finer points. In that, if you are an investor, if you work in the energy sector, and two things happen. One, you invest heavily. Your company invests heavily in the Keystone pipeline and ancillary projects, delivery dates, expectation of how much oil is available. And then Biden shuts it down. You've lost that money. Well, now they're going to try and recuperate it. So they're going to be raising prices to recover their losses. But then there's an even better one, a much simpler one. If you are projecting demand, and in those projections, you say, here's how much oil will cost in a year. With Keystone, we can increase supply, stabilizing supply and demand. Prices will remain stable. And then Biden goes, cool it there, chump, I'm going to shut it down. Then all of a sudden, the forecasters are like, okay, now in 5 years, supply is going to go down because there's no Keystone delivery. Demand will increase, prices will increase. And then you get speculative investors who buy a ton, thinking the prices are going to go up, and rightfully so. And that instantly drives prices up. All of that is on Joe Biden. And then the media comes out and lies to convince you it's not his fault. And this is not about Donald Trump. He's not the president. This is prices are up because of things Joe Biden did. He doesn't get the blame for literally every single thing that's more expensive, but he does take the blame for a lot of it.
I think the biggest blame I put on the Biden administration in this is the aggressive attack on carbon-based fuel, because it produces dirty clouds of carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide. You can reuse that carbon, atmospheric carbon. I talk about a lot on the show. You can turn it into this stuff. It's called graphene. You may be familiar with it. It's black powder. It's carbon, pure carbon. You get it out of the air, and then you can use it for a building material. You can make electronics out of it. It's like 21st century steel, and that's all you got to do.
Well, I figured it out.
Tell me.
See, what happened was the Democrats used to watch this show, and they got sick and tired of hearing Ian talk about graphene, and they went, just shut down the carbon dioxide. We ain't doing this graphene thing anymore.
So what I'd really like to point people at is, instead of worrying about not using it, keep using it. It's great stuff, but let's just recollect the waste byproduct and reuse it.
I think it's political suicide. I don't understand.
Well, remember the timeline. I mean, when Biden does all this, and it's all, under the guise of the green economy, the Green New Deal by another name, when he rolls out all these things, he does his executive orders, he kills the Keystone XL pipeline, he suspends the lease sales in Alaska and other places in federally controlled land. He absolutely attacks the fossil fuel the entire fossil fuel industry, and brags about it. And the left and the media, they cheer him on and they give him all this credit. I'm like, oh my gosh, he's the greenest president ever. He's so wonderful, so protecting the environment, down with fossil fuels. We're all against fossil fuels. And then when over time, the price of gas rises, the price of all fuels rise, that feeds inflation, which is now inflicting the entire economy. Suddenly they forget about how this big flurry of events at the very beginning of the administration, how he attacked fossil fuels, which caused gas prices to immediately begin to climb. They forget that part. It's like they championed him when he suspended all the Trump policies at the border and started doing things exactly the opposite of what Trump did regarding immigration. And then everybody said, yes, it's finally, we have somebody who treats everyone, no one, people aren't illegal. There are no illegal, the leftist mantra that they say.
Right.
And then when the border gets out of control, they forget that he overturned 97 Trump policies. And they don't want to lay the blame on him when they cheered what he did to cause it.
Right. They wanted the headlines. They wanted the buzzword, environmental first, turning down Trump policies, whatever else. They wanted those things. They did not think about the consequence of their actions.
But that's right. They love the policy and the way that it sounds. It makes them feel like good people because they enact and support certain policies. They just, I'll tell you what, the actual results of those policies are terribly inconvenient for them, and they don't want to handle that part.
the idea of stopping producing, even if we couldn't recollect the carbon, for instance, stopping to burn the carbon. If we were going to just stop burning carbon to save the environment, well, okay, what if now we can't fuel our aircraft and our tanks and our machines and our war machine anymore because we don't have fuel, and then we get attacked, invaded, or there's a nuclear strike, we'll annihilate the environment. Like the environment can be obliterated in many ways beyond just carbon. And if you take carbon out of the equation, there could be all these other ways that could end up obliterating the thing. So it's just a rushed, risky, stupid, feel-good thing, I think, to stop.
I mean, it just means, it shows you who's in charge of the administration. It's the radical left. And they're the ones. Joe Biden himself never believed any of these things in his 55 years in the Senate, however long he was there.
But just right at the end of his political career, he's saying, this actually is very important to me.
Yeah, and he never believed all these things. So you can tell who's pulling the strings over there.
I saw a video of him, I think it was yesterday, and he was like,
he's gone.
Talking. It was the worst I've ever seen him.
I remember
bad.
when
It's bad.
Joe Rogan on his show several months ago said, "How could you vote for Biden? The man is gone." And now you look at Biden today, it is an exponential collapse.
Yeah.
And this is what I've heard about people who are, sundowning or whatever they call it. It's like when you get old and you start to decline, the decline gets it's gradually, then suddenly it's just falling off a cliff. And Biden's there. I brought up when that protester yelled about healthcare, and he's sitting there and his eyes are half closed, all beat, and he's like, everybody needs healthcare. That was it. It was like, does he even know what's happening in the room right now?
I mean, all the signs they keep him so under wraps. They protect him so much. He's got everything scripted for him. He's got little cheat sheets. Who's going to pictures of the reporters? Who's going to ask him a question? What question is going to be asked? I mean, they use the little stairs now for him to get on the plane so he doesn't trip up the big steps. I mean, everything. And then it used to be. Now it's a little bit more out in the open. But it used to be, if you questioned the guy's acuity, you were hounded out of polite society. You can't question it. There's nothing wrong with him.
He had a stutter. How dare you?
Right, blame it all on the stutter. My.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.